In the borough of Queens, New York City, on a chilly Friday, June 14, 1946, a boy was born who would one day shake the foundations of American politics and business. His name? Donald John Trump. But before the gold-plated towers, controversial tweets, and global headlines, there was a childhood shaped by strict discipline, ambition, and real estate dreams. Donald was the fourth of 5 children born to Frederick Christ Trump, a real estate developer, and Mary Ann MacLeod Trump, a Scottish immigrant who had crossed the Atlantic seeking a better life. Fred Trump had built an empire of modest homes and apartment buildings across New York's outer boroughs. He was stern, deeply ambitious, and expected the same from his children. Mary, on the other hand, brought warmth and resilience into the household. A former domestic worker, she had grown up in the windswept Hebrides of Scotland. Her accent never left her. Neither did her deeply rooted traditional values. As a boy, Donald stood out. Restless. Energetic. Sometimes, too much so. His teachers described him as spirited, his parents, as difficult to manage. At the age of 13, after a string of disciplinary issues, Fred Trump made a decision that would change Donald's trajectory forever. He sent his son to the New York Military Academy. There, in the gray uniforms and under the watchful eyes of strict instructors, Donald found structure. Some say he thrived in the tough environment, even gaining popularity and rising to the rank of captain. Others claim he resented the constraints, learning early how to bend rules while avoiding consequences. But it was here, among marching drills and rigid dormitories, that Donald Trump began to understand hierarchy, charisma, and leadership, tools he'd later use to command boardrooms, rallies, and presidential podiums. After graduating in 1964, Trump enrolled at Fordham University in the Bronx. But the real action, he believed, was elsewhere. After 2 years, he transferred to the prestigious Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, one of the few schools at the time offering a real estate major. It was a perfect fit. At Wharton, Trump studied economics, networked with future financiers, and kept his eyes on the family business. He graduated in 1968 with a bachelor's degree and returned to New York ready to expand what his father had built, but with far grander visions. Fred Trump was a cautious businessman. He built homes for working-class families and avoided Manhattan's high-stakes world. But Donald? He wanted skyscrapers. Glamour. Prestige. While Fred worked in the outer boroughs, Donald looked across the East River to the shimmering towers of Manhattan. That skyline, he believed, could belong to him. In 1971, at just 25 years old, Donald Trump was handed control of the company. He renamed it the Trump Organization, and began rebranding not just the business, but himself. The Trump name would no longer be modest. It would be gold. It would be everywhere. His first major test came with the Commodore Hotel. It was a crumbling, nearly abandoned building near Grand Central Terminal. Where others saw ruin, Trump saw potential. He negotiated a complex deal involving city tax abatements, public-private partnerships, and an agreement with Hyatt Hotels to manage it. In 1980, it reopened as the Grand Hyatt Hotel, Trump's first big success. And from that moment, the brand exploded. Throughout the 1980s, Donald Trump became the face of aggressive real estate development in New York. Trump Tower rose on Fifth Avenue, an all-glass skyscraper adorned with a 6-story waterfall and pink marble interiors. It became his headquarters, his home, and a symbol of his unapologetic excess. He bought casinos in Atlantic City. Airlines. A professional football team. He wrote The Art of the Deal, a book that painted him as a business genius, master negotiator, and self-made billionaire, though critics argue the narrative was more myth than truth. Still, Trump was everywhere. His name gleamed on buildings, magazine covers, and late-night television. He dated models, married Ivana Trump, then later Marla Maples and Melania Knauss. His life was a tabloid spectacle, part business, part soap opera. But behind the flash and bravado, his empire was built on massive loans, risky ventures, and deep connections with banks and foreign investors. As the late 80s approached, trouble loomed on the horizon. His casino empire began bleeding money. The airline deal faltered. Real estate values dipped. And by the early 1990s, Donald Trump, once hailed as the King of New York, was facing bankruptcy. But if Donald Trump had mastered one thing in his early life, it was reinvention. When pushed into a corner, he didn't retreat. He rebuilt. Donald Trump, The Reinvention Years, 1990s-2000s. By the early 1990s, the golden walls of Trump's empire began to tremble. The lavish lifestyle, the towering skyscrapers, and the high-rolling deals came at a steep price: debt. Mounting loans, mismanaged properties, and an economic recession painted Trump into a financial corner. At one point, he owed billions. He even famously said, "I was billions of dollars in debt, now I'm worth billions again." And in between those statements was a storm of reinvention. The comeback kid. But Trump was never one to back down. He saw bankruptcy not as defeat but as strategy. He leveraged the law, renegotiated debts, and used the media to his advantage. The Trump name, once threatened by debt, became a brand shield. He licensed his name on hotels, casinos, clothes, bottled water, even steaks. His financial empire was shifting from buildings to branding. But it wasn't just branding that revived him, it was television. The Apprentice. In 2004, a new door opened. NBC launched The Apprentice, and Trump was no longer just a business mogul, he became a household name in living rooms across America. With his commanding presence and iconic line, "You're fired," Trump transformed into a media phenomenon. Viewers were drawn to his confidence, charisma, and larger-than-life persona. Behind the scenes, he served as executive producer, ensuring the show reflected his ideal image: tough, savvy, and always in control. The show became a hit and ran for over a decade. Trump's fortune and fame grew exponentially. The Trump Tower of pop culture. Trump wasn't just a businessman anymore. He became a pop culture symbol. Cameos in movies like Home Alone 2, wrestling promotions with WWE, and interviews that blurred the line between entertainment and ego, Trump was everywhere. Love him or hate him, you couldn't ignore him. Family, fame, and controversy. While his business and television presence soared, Trump's personal life was making headlines too. His marriages, to Ivana, then Marla Maples, and later Melania, were media events. Each brought tabloid attention, dramatic headlines, and moments of both glamour and scandal. His children, Don Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, became increasingly involved in the Trump Organization. They, too, became public figures, poised to carry the Trump legacy forward. A hint of politics. Throughout the 2000s, Trump flirted with politics. He voiced strong opinions on trade, foreign policy, and the economy. Many dismissed him as a celebrity with political dreams. But Trump was laying groundwork, testing waters, and watching closely. In 2000, he briefly ran as a Reform Party candidate. Though it fizzled out, the ambition was clear. He wasn't done surprising America. By the end of the 2000s, Donald Trump had rebuilt his name, reinvented his empire, and cemented himself as both a business tycoon and a media magnate. But the biggest chapter of his story was just beginning. Donald Trump, from reality TV to the White House, 2010s. As the 2010s began, Donald Trump had become a cultural fixture, a billionaire businessman, reality TV icon, and tabloid favorite. But while many saw him as entertainment, Trump saw opportunity. He watched political landscapes shift. Discontent was rising. People were angry about jobs, immigration, global trade. And Trump, never shy to speak, gave them a voice. His speeches, once dismissed as rants, struck a nerve. With the confidence of a man who had remade himself countless times, he took a bold step. 2015, the announcement. On June 16, 2015, inside the marble halls of Trump Tower, Donald Trump descended his golden escalator and made an announcement that shook the world. He was running for President of the United States. His speech was explosive, controversial, blunt, and instantly viral. Some laughed. Others were outraged. But millions listened. His message? America had lost its greatness. And he was the one to restore it. 2016, the campaign trail. The campaign that followed was unlike any in U.S. history. Trump insulted rivals, dominated headlines, and used Twitter like a weapon. He clashed with the media, challenged political norms, and connected with frustrated voters across the country. His slogan, "Make America Great Again," became a movement. He defeated seasoned Republican candidates, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and stunned the political establishment. Then came the biggest shock of all. November 8, 2016, victory. Against all odds and predictions, Donald J. Trump won the presidency, defeating Hillary Clinton in a stunning upset. It was a moment of triumph for his supporters, and a moment of disbelief for others. A billionaire with no prior political or military experience was now the most powerful man in the world. President Trump, the first term begins. From day one, President Trump governed as he campaigned, direct, defiant, and disruptive. He pulled the U.S. out of international agreements, tightened immigration policies, pushed for a border wall, and reshaped trade deals. His Supreme Court picks, tax reforms, and deregulation efforts redefined American policy. But his presidency also brought deep divisions, constant headlines, and investigations, including the Mueller probe into Russian election interference. Leading through crisis. Then came 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic hit. A health crisis became a political one. Trump's handling of the virus was praised by some, criticized by others. Protests erupted across the nation. The election loomed. Trump battled not just political opponents but a virus, a recession, and a wave of social unrest. Yet through it all, he remained unwavering, tweeting, rallying, and claiming achievements in the face of historic challenges. After losing the 2020 election to Joe Biden, Donald Trump refused to concede easily. He challenged the results with claims of widespread voter fraud, claims dismissed by courts and election officials. Then came January 6, 2021, a storming of the U.S. Capitol by his supporters. It shook the nation and led to his second impeachment, making history once more. Even after leaving office, Trump's presence remained powerful. He launched Truth Social, hinted at 2024 ambitions, and reshaped the Republican Party in his image. Loved and loathed, Trump's legacy is still being written.